In the spirit of Pride Month, I just want to say that here at Americans Anonymous, we do not see color, sexual orientation, or gender. We only see center mass. Brothers, welcome to the channel. Today we're talking about something a little bit more fun. This is my Draco, short-barreled AK. So basically, I'm just going to go over a little bit about the Draco. I'm not forgotten weapons here. I'm not going to get too in-depth, but I'm going to talk about why I think it's a cool platform, why I went with it, and kind of how I have it set up, and how this one has been for me. So let's jump into it. Basically, the Draco made famous here in the States, I think mostly by hip-hop and rap culture in general. I can't tell you how many times I've been at a gun show or a gun store throughout my life where someone has incorrectly referenced the short AK or AK in general as a Draco. For whatever reason, the Draco name is just ubiquitous in the firearms community, and really just when it comes to like gun knowledge among non-gun people in general, which kind of weird, but whatever. So basically, the Draco is the civilian version of the PMMD-90, which was the assault rifle developed in Romania for the Romanian commandos or paratroopers. Basically, it's just a Draco with a side-folding wire stock and select fire, I believe. So it's pretty cool that this is pretty much the same rifle without the fun switch and the folding stock. This was manufactured in Romania in the Cougar factory, so that makes it a legitimate Draco. There's a lot of weird American-made shit that's marketed as a Draco that's not really a Draco, so just be wary of that. I have no experience with them, but I would probably stay away. The real Draco has a cold hammer forged chrome line barrel, forged internals, which is what you want out of an AK. Last I checked, these were available at Atlantic Firearms. I picked mine up for about $800, I think like a year ago. I believe right now they are between like $860 and $999, something like that, depending on when you get it or whatever. So out of the box, it's going to come with the slick back, no rear turn-in, basically standard wood handguards and gas tube. Nothing to write home about there. It'll have a little thread protector that's spot welded on. A couple minutes with the Dremel tool and you can get it right off. Some of them do, some of them don't. My model happened to not have any spot weld on the thread protector, and it will come with a hooded front sight. As you can see, mine no longer has a hooded front sight, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But basically, I got it because I wanted a short-barreled AK. If you're not familiar, 7.62 by 39 doesn't lose too much when you shorten the barrel, unlike 5.56. So that gives you the opportunity to have a fighting rifle in a somewhat compact package and kind of retain the ballistic performance out of the cartridge. So interesting stuff. I was basically caught between this and the ZPAP M92. Obviously, I ended up going with the Draco, mainly because the Draco has a lot more compatibility with standard AKM furniture, that be handguards, gas tubes, dust covers, etc., etc. So let's jump into how I have this actually configured. So, like I said, out of the box, it's going to come with just standard wood handguards. I basically swapped those out right off the bat. I had a polymer lower handguard laying around from my PSA AKGF3 that I threw on here just because it looks a little cooler. And an Ultimac. This is the M7-B Ultimac. This actually isn't made specifically for the Draco. It's made for the Hungarian AMD something, but it says on the site that it'll work with the Draco, so I've had no issues with it. Threw that on there, no problem. Muzzle devices. So the muzzle device. This is the CMC Warrior Nightbreak. It's basically a hybrid muzzle device of short. And I basically selected like a hybrid muzzle device because if you guys aren't familiar, Regular Guy Training here on YouTube has a video on his Draco, which he has like 7,000 rounds through or something ridiculous. And he preaches using a hybrid muzzle device. I think he has a PWS something very similar to this muzzle device, but I'm going to tell you that his recommendation is superior. This muzzle device is not good. So basically you see it's a combination brake with a 3-prong kind of on it, but it's more a brake. So The three prong, the flash hider portion does absolutely nothing, as you probably saw from the beginning of the video. This thing hurls fucking fireballs, which on a fighting rifle is probably a no-go. It just, especially with like cheaper ammo, like when I run Tula through it, it's like fucking fireball city. So eventually I probably want to suppress this, but seeing as how it's foreign made, your threads on AK barrels are usually not concentric. I haven't even tried to see if it will line up with my 30 cal suppressor, but I'm just gonna go ahead and assume that it's not. If you're into AKs and you don't follow Clayco47 here on YouTube, he has probably one of the dopest Dracos I've ever seen. He SBR'd his and actually had his rebarreled so that he can safely run a suppressor. I don't know, maybe I'll end up doing that in the future, or maybe I'll just put, you know, as many rounds as I can through this thing and then I'll rebarrel it. Also, this muzzle device has like a very terrible like ringing, probably worse than a Surefire, so if you can, yeah, it's bad. Even like, not even when you do that, just like this, it just rings, so that kind of sucks. Have a tuning fork for real. Moving back from there, the Dracos have a combination 90-degree front sight gas block, which is superior in my opinion when it comes to AKs. Even if you're gonna get a full-size rifle and you know you're looking at a model that has a combination gas block versus one that doesn't, I would spring for this one. It just kind of pulls the weight further back on a system that's already kind of front heavy. So this rifle being short is like super wieldy, but still I think the combination 90-degree gas blocks are superior. Like I said, the front sight hood, it comes out of the box with a hooded front sight, which I found rather quickly it really obscures your sight picture, especially with a low mounted red dot like I have. Pretty much after like just taking it out of the box and setting it up and looking through it, getting behind it I should say, I decided that I was going to chop that shit right off. There's a little hole on the top so you can adjust your front sight base. I basically used the ruler to like get the edges and have a straight line. Made a pencil mark to kind of guide me when I was dremeling, and I dremeled it right off. After I did that, I used the grinding wheel to kind of smooth out both sides. Then I applied some bluing fluid that I got off of like Amazon. Let it cure, and then ended up painting it anyway. So basically you just don't want to have that exposed metal. A little bit of rust isn't going to hurt an AK, but if I can avoid it, I think you should. Basically it makes a much more attractive like sight picture when you're looking through it, because originally the hood landed like right where my dot was, and that kind of sucked. So it also just looks cooler, so I mean, I guess that's a plus. Moving back from there, this is like a cheap little Amazon, like Feyachi or something, weapon light and a Blackhawk offset mount. I'll get into why I got this in a sec. But moving back from there, the optics. So this is kind of interesting with this rifle. Before I put this together, I had no experience with a Ultimac, but being that it is the gas tube and knowing, you know, just from common knowledge on the internet and whatnot, it's like Ultimacs get hot. Like super fucking hot. So I was kind of leery about getting like a decent sight and putting it on there, and I didn't want to get it like nice red dot and have it get barbecued, so I went with something cheap. What that was a Sightmark Mini Shot M Spec. Now a Sightmark is kind of known as being like a shit tier optics manufacturer, but guys, I gotta tell you, I have about 1,000 rounds through this rifle with this little mini red dot on there, and it's fucking survived. Like, I don't know how, I don't know what's going on over there at Sightmark that they're able to sell a mini red dot for $140 something. At least when I got it on Amazon, it was like 140 bucks I think. And this thing has gotten so hot that the optic body itself is like too hot to touch. And fuck me, this thing is like kept on ticking. Like, I haven't lost zero, I've had no issues with it flickering or anything. Like, I give credit where credit is due. Like, good on you, Sightmark. Like, you cranked out a good like little micro red dot. Now, I mean, would I put it on a more serious rifle? I would say if it survived like 1,000 rounds riding on an Ultimac on a short barreled AK, fuck yeah, probably yeah. Like, this is a decent little red dot. Like, the fact that it didn't get barbecued, it just to me speaks volumes to, I mean, maybe Sightmark is stepping up their game. Like, in the past, like, I haven't used Sightmark for anything other than like red dots on my airsoft rifles, but I mean, shit, like, this thing has survived and, I mean, held zero. So I mean, like, there's been much more like reputable companies that have cranked at red dots that have died on Ultimax. So I mean, I could say that, and maybe tomorrow I'll go out and shoot and it'll finally die. But as far as right now, this thing has been good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it a stamp of approval and say like, hey, the Sightmark M Shot Mini, like, decent little red dot. I mean, unfortunately, there's no night vision settings, at least not an advertised one. But I mean, when you turn this thing down to the lowest brightness setting, it's pretty much invisible to the naked eye. And like getting behind it with my night vision, it's like, it's somewhat bloomed. So I'm gonna probably say it's usable. But I mean, if you want a night fighting rifle, you'd probably spend a little bit more money on a better red dot. But I mean, it's usable. So if I remember, I'll throw my LPMR on my night vision and go out and get some footage of it tonight so you can kind of see what it is. Anyways, moving back from there, it's basically a standard AKM rear sight. I'm not a big fan of like the ones that are spot welded onto your dust covers. Like, that's just me. I've had no issues as far as magazines go. From Atlantic Firearms, it ships with a US Palm mag. No problem with that. No problem with steel. These are Croatian. I've had no problem with these. I've had no problem with mag pulls. So no issue with magazines. Pretty standard magazine release for an AK. The trigger. So this is where I ran into something a little interesting. The trigger is dog shit. There's no way around it, guys. Like, the trigger on this fucking AK is terrible. I'll ghost it real quick just so you can kind of see. As my muzzle device rings. But so if you can see this, it's gonna be mashed potatoes, mashed potatoes, mashed potatoes, mashed potatoes, break. So I ordered an ALG Ultimate or whatever, the one with the lightning bow. And when I tried to install it, I realized that the pinholes on this particular Draco are ever so slightly canted from one another. So once I had the ALG in there and I tried to slide the pin back through to get it in, it would not go all the way through and like seat. So I could have taken my Dremel tool and grinded a little of the material off of one of the trigger pins to get it to seat, but I don't know. I felt kind of weird about doing that. So I basically just threw the standard trigger back in there. I did, however, put the lightning bow on it, so I think that's the little like spring that assists your reset, and actually that helped quite a bit with the reset on this trigger. So if you can see, it used to be a terrible reset, basically non-existent. Now it has a little bit more of a push to it. So in my opinion, that allows me to really like shoot this rifle like relatively fast. And I don't think it's fast as like my slick AR triggers, but fast enough. That being said, other guys on the platform have had no problem putting their ALG triggers in Dracos, so I think it was just kind of the luck of the draw, and I happened to get a bad model. Besides that, it has a shepherd's hook in there out of the factory, which if you're into AKs, you know it's probably not the perfect, or not the greatest configuration. So I put a retaining plate in there, just, I mean, for a little bit of peace of mind. Pistol grip. I actually like this style of pistol grip. I have somewhat small hands, so the standard polymer pistol grips that come on most AKs out of the box, I tend to leave them on there. I get a good like grip and purchase on it. I like it. So I like being able to really wrap my hand around a pistol grip, especially like on something with a little more recoil like an AK, so I can really shoot fast. Like I like it. So safety, the safety is fine once you get used to it. I definitely prefer the safety on my PSA AK because it has that little shelf so you can just use your finger. But after you get the feel of this, it's good. I did have to do like a significant amount of bending to get it like this loose, because out of the box this thing was tight, and like I had to like crank on it to get it to come out of safety and back in. So easy fix as far as AKs go. No issue there. So my stock and brace setup. This is a SB Tactical buffer tube adapter thingamajig. Basically it comes and it's just this little section here with a fork, and it's threaded for a buffer tube. So basically you unscrew your pistol grip a little bit, the forks go under, then you crank the pistol grip down onto it, so it's a friction fit. I was a little worried when I installed it, because I was like, yo, this is a short barreled AK, recoil is going to be a little stout. It's just a friction fit. I'm sure it's going to work itself loose after the first couple magazines. Surprisingly it hasn't. I don't have any Loctite or anything on my pistol grip screw. It's just kind of cranked down in there, and I've had no issues with it, so it runs fine for me. The angle here allows me to get my head down low enough, because I do the sight picture on this mini red dot is kind of low, so I really have to get like buried into the gun to get my sight picture. But this setup works. I mean, I threw it together kind of cheap and fast, and it works. So mil-spec buffer tube, SPA3, pretty standard. Sling, I'm running just a Vigorous Tactical 8K sling. It's threaded through a little front sight or front front sling retainer loop thing, and then it's just kind of ghetto rigged around the buffer tube, but it works. For what I got into it, it's a damn good little fighting rifle. So I'll go ahead and say, like, if you want like a short barreled AK and don't want to spend a shitload of money like on a fucking arsenal or whatever, this thing's pretty dope. Paint job. So I get a lot of questions about the paint job. So I affectionately call this paint job the Sand Tiger. Basically, the way I did it was first tape off everything. Obviously, you don't want to get paint on. Then I laid down a base coat of Rust-Oleum dark brown. After I did that, I made little stencils with gaffer's tape. Put the stencils on there. Then I laid over a second coat of desert khaki. After that, I took my little airbrush setup that I have and basically outlined all the stencils to give kind of like that like black outline looky around the tiger stripes. And I have it for scale modeling. I dabble in scale modeling. I'm definitely not great. There's a lot of dudes on this platform that are gifted. I'm not one of them. But yeah, that's basically how I achieved this paint job. Looks pretty cool in my opinion. I mean, if you don't like it, you don't have to do that. It took a little bit of effort. It took like 2 days to get the whole thing done, letting it dry properly and all that. But I mean, I think it came out pretty cool. This is a pistol, unfortunately. Will I SBR it in the future? I don't know. Being that the receiver's kind of messed up and I'm stuck with this trigger, probably not. I would like to suppress it, so maybe in the future I'll end up rebarreling it, kind of like Clayco did, just so I can, you know, run my suppressor. But as far as right now, I mean, I have a lot of fun shooting this gun. Like, I think it's a capable fighting rifle, but it is just fun to shoot. But I think what I'm probably most likely going to do is like upgrade my red dot, maybe go with a different lower handguard to run my light off of that, and then maybe a Zeniko IR device for night vision. Obviously, I'll have to address the muzzle device issue, so I'm not flashing and auto-gating my tubes out. It's not to say this rifle isn't capable, it definitely is, but if something goes down, obviously I'm probably going to grab one of my ARs that I have a lot more money in and a lot more reps on, so that's just how that goes. But as far as like a cheap little like setup that works, I think this is pretty cool and good to go. So thanks for watching, guys. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. I have a lot more videos and shit coming up on some other rifles, setups, training stuff, etc., etc. So hopefully, I don't know, maybe if this channel gets more popular, we'll do like a Patreon or an OnlyFans, or I don't know, whatever you guys are into. Or if any companies out there want to sponsor me or send me ammo, that would be dope. But that's about it, guys. Follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you in the next one.